Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Let's see what we can find tonight. Well, first off, it looks like a shop has restocked some brand new inventory. I'm seeing a couple of nice slash Les Pauls if you've been looking for something with a nice top. This November burst is pretty nice, I would say. Not the craziest top in the world, but I can tell just by looking at the photos, this is one of those tops that's going to be really vibrant in person and move a lot. And this green one's not so bad either. But continuing on here, hey, here's a cool lesson that not everybody knows. Did you know that Epiphone had chainsaw cases too, back in the early 80s? So this is generally a Gen 3 chainsaw case, but sometimes you can find them branded Epiphone. The badge on them looks a little bit different. Obviously it's labeled Epiphone, but essentially these are just about the same cases, but you will notice that they're less padded. Now, I haven't seen enough of these to know if each and every single one of these are the same, or if this happened to just be produced within the Gen 4 chainsaw case era. Because if you don't know how the generations go, Gen 1 is the original style but only 2 plastic latches. Gen 2 is that same style but 3 plastic latches. Then there's Gen 3 that turned into this big bulky, but it got the metal latches, so a lot of people like those. But then in Gen 4, they strip all the nice plush padding away. They get rid of the door cover right here. There's no padding in the headstock area, just a little bit of a felt thing down here so you're not scratching the guitar up. These are the absolute worst version of the chainsaw case, the versions that have no padding. But it's a unique piece of Gibson history anyways. So yes, if you do find one that's branded Epiphone, it's the exact same case as the Gibson version, it's just branded differently. You don't find them too often, but if you're one of those guys that tours a lot, takes your guitar everywhere, having a case that's branded Epiphone, not a bad thing. But hey, that's not too bad of a price on a Zoot Suit. Well, except for the crazy shipping cost. If you want to learn about the Zoot Suits, you can check out my multitude of videos on them. I've done every single color and every single iteration. This is one of the blue and red ones. I believe I called this one the Superman SG. However, maybe it's just the photos, but this one is really dark. I don't think I've seen one quite this dark before. It's almost like a black and red. Because here's what a black and red looks like, and here's what a blue and red looks like. But if I had to guess, it's probably supposed to be the blue and the red. They're birch wood, but they're dyed multiple different colors. Then they laminate them together, kind of like a skateboard deck, and then they carve them out into the SG shape. Seems most of these sell in the $1,800 to $2,500 range yet. Oh, and I'm really happy to run into a Gothic. I learned something. If you guys check out the Gibson Garage's new video, where they give you the tour, Mark Agnesi taught me something I didn't know about vintage Gibsons. And when I say vintage Gibsons, I'm talking like the beginning of the company. Okay, so these Gothic series guitars, they always had this inlay that was a crescent moon with a star. The back of the headstocks also have Orville Gibson on them. And I never really thought anything of it. So apparently, the very earliest Gibson guitars that were ever created were not branded Gibson. They were branded like this. So that is just a huge throwback, and it completely ties that together with the portrait on the back as well as on the fretboard. I'm sure if you're a real vintage Gibson buff guy, you probably knew that for years, but that blew my mind when I saw that. So if you want to head on down to Nashville, you can actually check out an original Gibson that has a logo like that. Even though there were no Les Pauls done up like that, that'd be kind of an interesting collector's choice type limited run of 100 guitars. The original Gibson branding on it. Okay, it looks like somebody did a Iron Cross. So I'm really hopeful that this will happen within the next 5 years. James will come over to Gibson and at least let him do a signature limited edition run. I know he's really entwined with ESP and all that, but a true reissue of Uncle Milty would be awesome. Because the ESP version, yeah, it's cool, but I want a true Gibson version just because, I'm a fan of this brand. So until then, people just buy up early 70s Les Paul customs and they do them up like this. This particular one, it was an okay job. I don't really like the way that they've done this. They try to dirty up the wood to make it more realistic, but the pattern, it's just not my favorite. I like the ones where people uncover the maple top and then there's just flame figuring right there for no reason. I mean, that's not the way James's is all done, but it's kind of a cool surprise when you do see it. But relicking is definitely a touchy subject. Sometimes they look good, sometimes they don't. It really just depends on the example. And this one, it looks like a rushed job. I mean, you've got a lobster on the back here. because the UM is actually engraved into the guitar, and this one, it only looks like they took it out of the finish. That way, if somebody wanted to refinish it later on and not have the UM scratched into it, maybe that's what they did that for. But it looks like this one has been refretted. Definitely been well worn in on the neck. I mean, I bet this started out as a player's grade guitar to begin with. They've got the Spurzle tuners on it, but what's going on with that serial number? It looks like somebody tried to etch the paint out of it, that way you could see it better. The font looks a little bit weird too, but maybe it's just because of that. That's a beautiful neck on that guitar. Wow. But the big question is, did they do the EMGs? Because that's the trickiest thing about creating an Iron Cross replica, is Hetfield has the EMG pickups in here with the active electronics, but they've got gold covers on them with pole pieces. So it just looks like a regular pickup. So let's see. This is an original 73, they're saying. And yes, indeed, it looks like they did the pickups right. So in that aspect, good job. I think I've seen a few of them pass through the Imperial Vintage shop before. 10,000 bucks is a bit pricey though, but it also depends how many there are on the market. And currently, that's the only one. But moving on here, looks like Gibson is starting to create some left-handed guitars. That's, I think, the first 70s Explorer I've seen out in the wild. So hey, lefties that are out there, apparently they exist. Usually custom order, but this one's available right away. Ooh. I know it's a lefty and it should have a headstock like that, but the reverse Explorer headstock is always really cool to me, especially on right-handed guitars. But what have we got going on here? $65,000 for a 56 Les Paul Custom. Okay, generally these 50s Les Paul Customs, they're more affordable than you'd think. They're still expensive, but they're nowhere near as expensive as a true burst. $50,000 should give you the pick of the crop when it comes to these guys until they start putting PAFs in them anyways. It looks like John Shanks owned this, and there's a little bit of additional history going on there. I guess if you have an affinity for any of these types of things, I mean, there's some pretty big names in that. That's what they're going for as far as the premium. It looks like Dan Erlewine actually did a small little appraisal. Yeah, it's worth a lot more than $2,000 today, but here we are. Oh wow, almost 40 years later. It definitely has signs of play wear on that neck, but we still get the original staple pickup. Finally, a good photo, I can show you guys this. Remember how I tell you guys these staple pickups, they're huge? They're huge underneath there. The staples really go far down into the guitar, so usually you'll have to have a deeper route for those guys. So if you just want to swap out a P90 with one of these things, you're probably going to have to do some additional routing, depending on how your guitar was initially routed. But it looks like this one was refretted, so this was definitely kept within playing condition. Oh, what's that though? Not quite sure. Definitely doesn't belong on a 50s Gibson though. Cool guitar. I love these things. I love them more than the 3 pickup Black Beauties because it's such a unique vintage look to them. And they're very expensive to even get reissues. In fact, I think I've only ever owned one. Oh. Okay, tell me more. 1981 Gibson Flying V Heritage Birdseye Korina. Nice. If you're collecting the Heritage Series guitars from the early 80s, you know, getting one of each of the Modern, the Explorer, and the Flying V, it's a must-have. But in order to make your collection stand out, you want to find one that has something a little bit extra to it. So why not some birdseye figuring in your Korina? I don't think I've ever heard of that before. I mean, it just kind of looks ugly in photos, but this should have a nice appearance to it in person, because normally Birdseye does have some movement when you shine it in the light. That's a really strange photo angle. It makes it look like a tiny little guitar. But is that a 3-piece neck? Ah, darn, somebody dinged the headstock up here. Okay, yeah, 3-piece neck with an A serial number, A37, nice. This definitely says collector's grade all over it. Maybe not the condition, but it's got a good serial number and it's got good figuring. I could see a collector really wanting this example. And hey, we've even got the original pickups. You know, I never realized these had 3-piece necks, because normally they're pretty well matched like this one. That's kind of blowing my mind. I keep looking through all these to see, is that true? Guess since I've never had one of these before, I just never realized it. Like, I always thought I was just seeing the wings on here, but no. I don't think the originals had 3-piece necks. That's kind of a strange spec. So at $9,750, definitely priced very high, but he's got a couple of interested parties already. I don't see that thing lasting too long, because to find an A serial number and have unique figuring, that's something that somebody wants. Speaking of those faded crescent moon inlays, here's one of those SGs. I wanted to take a closer look at the inlays. Hopefully they have a photo here. Guess not, but essentially they just took away the star on there. So now the crescent moon inlays, they make sense to me. I always thought it was such a strange decision to put those on there, but it's actually an homage to the very, very vintage Gibsons. And ooh, I just refreshed the page and I'm seeing a couple of things I might have to buy. Okay, so this is a 2020 made to measure Les Paul Custom in trans purple gloss. If only this would have been a teardrop shape. I hate that they had to do the rim burst. That looks okay. It's a little bit dark, but I think that's the first purple burst Les Paul Custom I've ever seen, you know, outside of like the Purple Widows, where they give the purple binding and everything. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Just needed a little bit more black right here for my own personal tastes. I'm sure if you were to custom order this yourself, probably it'd be $6,500, so $5,500, not that bad for a nearly new guitar. This thing caught my attention because of the short vibrola arm, but I was reading the description and apparently that was added, so that is why the price is a little bit lower on this one. So it kind of has that Korina vibe from far away, but then when you get up close, it's like, okay, yeah, that's a really aged white finish. But man, I love a Gibson Explorer headstock with the Kluson tuners. That is just the coolest vintage looking thing ever. They don't do that enough in my opinion. But anyways, if you don't mind taking that vibrola off and having 3 screw holes on the front, that's actually a really good deal on that guitar. And darn it, I was really hoping this is the one I've been looking for. I'd rather have a more exotic finish anyways than red. I've already done the red. I think it was a Corvus 1, but I've wanted the Corvus 3 to demonstrate the single coil tones out of them, but they're firm at their $1,200. I've been looking for one of these at about $900. There's not many buyers for Corvuses out there, but I still want to document one of these. But hey, I think that's the first time I've actually seen the backside of one of those pickups. Interestingly enough, it's got the Tim Shaw style date stamps on them. That looks like a nice one to add to somebody's collection. Priced at the top of the market, but fair. Alright, Troglodytes, I think that's going to do it for today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.